Freddie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's brilliant to have you on to chat. How are you?
Very well. My pleasure to be here.
Good to hear you and thank you again. I'm looking forward to chatting. And I want to go back where I do with every music guest because I like to kind of learn how people found their love for music almost. So when was it you discovered your love for music and who were your like artists and bands who you maybe looked up to when you first wanted to be a musician?
I think music was a refuge. I think initially it was something I found I was good at, like playing guitar at least. And then it became like a real refuge when I was about 7 and my parents split up and we moved house and had a lot of changes and it I'm not sure even a refuge in playing, but just like I was so young then, but it really soundtracked a lot of like it was a kind of manifestation of someone's just walking up my drive, like a manifestation of change, like they were making sounds and art that really reflected how I felt, and that kind of bonded me to people. Like, but yeah, as a guitar player, like quite the usual suspects, like Jimi Hendrix and people like that. Which I mean, Jimi Hendrix remains my favorite artist.
Favorite artist of
Yeah,
all time?
not because he's like a sick guitar player, but just because he's a spiritual and powerful, like probably the most powerful guitar player and one of the most powerful artists that's I think ever existed. And you get them every generation. You get a few like Bob Marley was like that, Jimi Hendrix was like that. They're just pure like love, power, really special.
Yes, we're kind of looking up to the strong, powerful guitarists, really, with yourself going on
Yeah,
to be a lead guitarist. Yeah,
but but not because I thought, oh, they got good technique or anything like that. Just because it was it was like any great artist, they're just expressing something that you understand intuitively to the music, but you might not be able to put words to or even understand what they're saying, but you understand it when you hear it. Kind of like a higher calling, a higher thing, that there's more to life um, than what everyone else says life's about. Yeah.
kind of the reflection on how you were kind of feeling at the time as well. Like
Yeah, I
these
guess
songs
so.
that had an impact on you.
I felt like my whole world was just blown up. So I think it was natural at that point to be like, well, maybe maybe there's something bigger than like houses and even people. There's like a bigger thing going on. But I was so young; it was purely an instinctual attraction to that. I'm still grappling with those ideas now. I'm still
Yeah.
understanding them at a deeper level. Yeah.
It sounds like music was always the thing that you wanted to do. So let's talk early vaccines days. How did you guys how did you, Justin, and other guys all meet and come together then? Because I like learning how bands met because there's so many different ways how people meet. So
Oh, it's really funny. Yeah, just talking to someone about 7-year cycles. Every 7 years you're a completely different person physiologically than you were before, because every 7 years all your cells have been regenerated, or everything is new. But actually, I guess Justin and I met when I was 19. So when I was 7 years old, my parents split up. That was a major change. When I was 14 years old, I don't know what the major change was then, like discovering alcohol probably. And then 19, I met, and I kind of met Justin around that point, and I think we were both very disillusioned with the music industry, and we'd kind of given up basically. We had a lot of, or he certainly had a lot of friends who were very successful at that point. My brother had become quite successful. And we just thought, you know what, it's not probably not going to happen. But another friend of ours was like, come on, let's go into record it. Let's go into rehearsal studio and knock some songs around for a laugh. And I was like, no, I don't want to start another band. I'd much rather just be a session player. I'd do anything that's remotely music related for money, because I have no money. I'm sick of like this way of life, and I've had enough of the chaos. So don't want to start another band. And then we went to the studio, and immediately I understood that Justin and I were supposed to play together. And I didn't really care. I was actually starting the band playing bass because we all decided to swap instruments. I didn't care about what instrument I was going to play. I was like, this just feels really, really good. So it was the kind of antithesis of like a masterminding. Oh, we're going to put this band together. It's going to sound like this. It's going to be like this. It was more just like feeling, you know, it felt right. It felt positive. It felt like a good thing for us. And then things happened really quickly.
Yeah, of course. The first
From
album.
that point, yeah.
What did you expect from the Vaccines in 2011? How was the road up to that? Because, of course, it's some bands. It's a very long process to release the first album, but usually it all happened really quickly.
Yeah, so we'd all had quite a lot of experience playing. Like Pete, so we got Arnie and then we got Pete in. And Pete was a very well versed like jazz drummer. Arnie had played with loads of people. I'd been on tour with some people by that point. Justin had been on tour. Justin played the O2 by supporting Katie Melua, I think. Maybe not Katie, I can't remember, but I think it was Katie Melua. So we kind of knew our way around, like performing and a little bit about recording. And we got great managers straight away, and they knew exactly what to do. So it was seamless and it was quick. I wouldn't say it was easy. I think the hardest part was just trying to. I felt very aware that we had to keep making the right steps. You know, like try not to mess up this interview. Try and make sure this recording session goes well. Like try and get your look together, get your act together, get your sound together. It's happening real quick, and I'm reading Johnny Marr's book at the moment, and it's interesting. You know, when things are coming, when the flow is there, things happen really quick. You know, you're in the studio, you need a solo for this song, like just put the first thing that comes into your head, or we need another song for this. We're missing a track here, like just go and write something. And so it was a really exciting time, and I think we just had a lot of good energy. It was so amazing to hear our song on the radio. And when Zane Lowe played it on Radio 1, he played a demo of ours in like August 2010. It's just like mind blowing, you know. These are our heroes, and it was a real stage of confidence, but also disbelief.
Yeah, but it's kind of happened so quickly, was it kind of hard to process as well when it happened that quickly?
Yeah, like what? Then I think, I don't know. It was like armor. It was like you get this look, and you put this. I was like wearing makeup, and you get this very specific like looks. And it was almost like, it was kind of perfect. You know, there was no. It was like a perfect. You hear about that and I think at that point we were a great band, and you hear about that. It's just this is perfect moments. People come together, music comes. You know, our manager was really into rockabilly. He introduced me to some music that really influenced the sound and the look, and so the Vaccines in 2011 were like a great British guitar band. You know, as good as they come. It's a great record, great debut. And it was fucking exciting actually.
Yeah, it's got some fantastic tracks in it, of course. If you want a post breakup section, Wetsuit, just to name a few. But what have you got any in particular favorite track off the album?
I think Wrecking Bar is great because it's just like
such a nice short song.
Yeah, it's always the song that you dream about having a statement piece. You know, that was our
Yeah,
first single. It's like a minute long. I remember just how excited people around us who were managing us were about it, and I was like, I know it's awesome. I didn't really understand the significance of it being a minute. That's just what felt good. but I understand now, and in hindsight, yeah, it's such a statement piece. It has amazing intro. It sets all the sonic precedent for what the band is. It's got it's great rockabilly guitar solo, great songwriting, it's great energy. It's clever, but it's simple. It's got everything. It's a minute. And rock and roll it's a real it's a church, isn't it? It's like a religion, and it needs reinventing whilst being firmly rooted in its principles, and bands come along and do that, and it only needs to be reinvented a smidge, but I think we'd successfully done that in that first single. In our own way, we'd freshened rock and roll for ourselves, and so that's priceless. It's like you can't do that out of force's will. That's just that's fate, and that's a moment. So really blessed for that one. And the whole first album was like that. I don't know where the assurance came from, but I knew, and we all knew kind of what it needed to be, what it needed to sound like, what the songs needed to be like. And then when I was helping mix the album with Michael Brow, I was really pushing him. And he's more reverb, more of this, more of that. And he's like, "You sure?" And I don't know where it was coming from. He's like, "Yes, 100% sure. More. It needs to sound like this." But it wasn't referencing any other band. It was just a really strong sense of knowing what it needed to be.
Kind of like your own sound, really.
Yeah, but I think in a non-scientific way, it's an intuitive sense. So there's something that is coming through these group of people, and we don't know why, but we know what it needs to sound like, what it needs to look like, what it needs to be, because that's what feels right. But in a way, I felt like a participant and an observer, as well as someone who was key in executing it. Didn't feel like it was just us with this, scientifically figuring out this formula to do it. It felt like everyone that was coming to see us and everyone that was working with us in the band and the fans, it was all like, oh wow, we're all experiencing this moment come through us together. I think that's what's so exciting. People, when a great new band shows up and people want to go and see them and be part of it, and because you're witnessing something that's kind of unexplainable, and you can't really quantify why you love it, but you do love it. You don't like it, you love it, and it's an amazing thing. I think that's what people want to see. When people want to see Anthony Joshua become the best boxer in the world, it's not because they just want to be there to witness something magic.
Yeah. Would you say would you say that's the most exciting part of being in a band, releasing your debut album, and your most exciting part, would you say, is when you're fresh off the blocks?
Depends who you are. I think for us, yes.
Yeah, especially having such an impact so soon after forming.
Yeah, it was just doing things for the first time. We were so far from jaded. We weren't afraid. We just were on a roll, and it was great, and but for some other bands, it's later.
Yeah.
Favorite album is the last album or whatever.
Yeah, and so some bands have kind of a long path to get to even releasing their first album. I mean, I've spoke to a few people like that, but I guess for you, I bet it felt amazing just getting together and then having success so soon. But what was it like taking that album on the road and touring for the first time?
It was really exciting. I think for me personally, I don't know. I think it was an amazing adventure. Amazing adventure, but I don't want to try and rewrite it for something it wasn't. I think I felt pretty insecure sometimes. Yeah. I'm quite unsure about myself and I could never have told you that at the time, couldn't really understand it, but I felt a little bit like don't belong here, and it's all a bit much. And I think for me personally, personally as a group, but I think carried some fear like, into the second record.
Yeah,
Fear.
yeah,
Like fear of like what, and almost a kind of attitude of lack, and like we're not as successful as these people, or we haven't done this, and we must have made a mistake. And I think that was kind of, there was a turning point very quickly in the band's career where I think we started to not affirm the things that were really good about us and started to question the things that we might be missing, which I think is a really dangerous and not a very fruitful attitude. But that's, when you're young, you don't, in one way, your lack of perspective and experience is so useful, but in other ways, it can be a hindrance. And I think that's the story of most bands,
Do you think the sudden success and the height of the first album almost put that fear on you a little bit, with you thinking, well, maybe, what about if we don't live up to this? What about if our next record isn't as good?
I don't think it was I think it was just like I speak for myself, it was my personality. But it was definitely like a collective feeling, I think, in the band. It was, that not having that sense of self-assurance. We'd like fallen into this first record, and circumstantially, no money, nothing else going on, like just 100% focused, like consuming huge amount of music and huge amounts of pop culture, and just all focusing into this thing. And I think, by the way, subsequently, I think we made great. I don't think Vaccines ever made a dub record.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and I just wondered what the energy would have been like which was, and I don't believe in hypotheticals, but it's just interesting to me if one would go into it being like, no, this is what isn't this great? All the success we've had, isn't it amazing? Like, but that, then again, that's not a reality. So that wasn't on the cards. And I think Come of Age has some amazing moments, and I think that sense, and I think Justin's writing is amazing, and laying it all out and being like, I don't feel like fucking Alex Turner, I don't feel like this, I don't feel like this person. I have to write a song about that. And I think Justin was always so good at that, about just saying what he was about. And I think people really connected with that record. So I think, even though the band might not have had like the textbook, pure, perfect, whatever that is, motivation off the back of that first record, I think we always made great records. Right up until Back in Love City, I think we always were willing to go to war with each other to make sure that what we were putting out was something we thought was great. And once we thought it was great, then I didn't really care. None of my business what people think, but I knew we would always cross a line every time we made a record where it was like, okay, now this is great.
What are some of your, in particular, favourites?
Records?
Yeah, and songs as we go through the catalogue.
Well, I don't know. I think No Hope is a great tune. Lonely World on that record is really good. So that's the top and tail of that record. I Want You So Bad is great on English Graffiti.
Yeah.
All Afternoon in Love was great. I was less into the more like frenetic tunes on that, but they were really important as well. And then Combat Sports, great record.
Yes.
Combat Sports was a tough record to make, because again, like, you have to be willing to go to war, and you got to get in a room and be like, these are all the things that I think are wrong about it. But then you also have to offer solutions, and then you have to kind of grind it out until you're all happy. But that's what being a band. That's what sometimes being a band is about, you know. We all have a shared vision, or shared destination. You have different ideas how to get there, and then that process of like kneading it out makes something that doesn't belong to any individual in the band. It's a collective thing, you know, because you just packed it in, you fought it out, and that's why it's called combat sports.
Oh, so that's the meaning behind the album title.
Yeah, because Justin and I were finishing the record in the studio one day, and I told him to fuck off or something, and he told me to fuck off, and I at that point I was like quite large in the gym every day, and I was like, oh great, I get to test out my newfound strength by like knocking his teeth out, which would have been the dumbest fucking thing, because I've never hit anyone in my life properly. And then we made up like a couple of hours later, and he's like, I've got an idea for an album title called Combat Sports. And I'm like, brilliant, perfect. You know? Which sounds like something from like a biography, or, you know, and it is a good story.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm glad you've kind of given the meaning behind the album name. Then it's interesting how it comes from a story of like kind of used to having a bit of an argument in the studio whilst finishing the album.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, we not on the first record, but Justin and I always go to war on making an album, and I'm sure that he would kind of, I don't know if he would say it was a hindrance or whatever, but like the proof's in the pudding. Like the albums are great, and you know, I wasn't shy about what I knew we had to go through, and it wasn't because I thought things had to be difficult. It's just there in the music, you know. Something might have potential, but then also I was wrong about things all the time. I hated that I Can't Quit on Combat Sports until right up until the end, and we just got this particular, for me it was like a particular guitar sound that just kind of made sense of it and made it something that it was more earthy, and then I was like, okay, now that's great, you know. So I don't want the reins either, you know, not that I had them, but it's a funny thing being a band, you know.
Which part?
Pulling your hair out over each other, but it's actually they're really important. The friction's really important, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing the best out of each other. And can I ask which part of I Can't Quit was it that was added to make you then like the song?
Oh, it wasn't. It was just the rhythm guitar and the chorus.
Yeah.
The demo of it was the song was all there, but to me, the demo of it sounded like quite like, you know, almost like bad American rock or something.
Yeah.
And it just felt quite boring in the studio. Sorry, in like rehearsals. And then we spent ages trying to find a guitar sound, and then I thought there was a song called Black Math by White Stripes on Elephant, which is I just thought that fills the whole space, and he's just playing two chords and it just works. So let's try and get that sound. I just so happened to have the pedal that he used.
Cool.
So let's like try that. And it was like, it was exactly the same chords and everything. It's just playing around with the sound until it sounded like it didn't miss anything. It just sounded like it was really full on. Because a song like that, you know, if you play it in a rehearsal room and you don't have good sounds, a song like that will just sound like shit, you know. Because it's not a melody thing that's you know, it's just two chords and the hook, you know, I can't quit, and ooh. But often that's the case. If something's really simple, it can sound pretty bad until you get it in the right context, you know. So that's also like an art form. And Justin was so good at that, like knowing how to write simply, you know.
So of course, after combat sports, fast forward a few years to Back in Love City, and then that was, of course, your final album with the Vaccines. But after Back in Love City, what was it that? Because of course, earlier this year you announced your departure from the Vaccines. So, and ahead of the release, around the time of the release of your solo album, Answer Machine was Freddie and the Scenarios. But what was it that made you depart the Vaccines after Back in Love City to pursue a different project?
I mean, there wasn't anything in particular. I just felt really strongly that it was time to move on. But it's been a year now.
Yeah.
And um, I think I knew instinctively knew that what I was just talking about in terms of what we went through to make each album was not on the cards this time. And I think I could see that it wasn't going to be like collaborative in the way it usually was. But that wasn't the reason. It was just a really strong feeling. But I can see now that I think partly there was like a surrender in me and going, we're not going to like go through what I think we're going to go through to make a great record. And I don't want to just make something for going through the motions of it. I want to be about something else, or not be about something. I want to maintain what I'm about. If I think it can be great, I'll do it. And I would love to make another record with the band down the line a bit, if that was something that materialized, if that was the mentality we had together. And it's just my mentality about it. I just thought, I don't see this being something that I will love.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had the opportunity, given the circumstances that were presented, of actually doing something about it. Because obviously the band is not there to make things that I like. It's my responsibility to get in there and make it such that I think, now it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But that wasn't on the cards because of the schedule and because of what the plans were. And that was the genesis of the kind of discussion where I thought, okay, this is a good time to exit. But yeah, ask me in another year, like, what it was about. I don't know. I think talking about 7-year cycles, I'm 35 now, so I'm in another 7-year cycle, and I'm just reevaluating what life is about to me. And it is about, to me, I think it's about principles. It's about what I really value and how I spend my time with that in mind.
Yes.
And I think for someone who's like being very, very, influenced by money and influenced by that stuff, I think it's something to do with like taking off the significance of that and just being like, I want to be about my principles. So like I said, yeah, if I felt like we'd get into a situation and I thought I could contribute something and we could do something great, I'd be like, fuck yeah, But I wasn't going to do it for the wrong reasons, and I only had wrong reasons left at that point.
Yeah, so probably the right time to move on. And I want to talk about your solo album, Answer Machine. It's a fantastic album. When I was listening, it's I wanted to ask you what inspired it, because it's got a lot of unique sounds almost, which I imagine you've kind of done yourself. And then I was reading about how it was inspired by a trip to Mexico. So could you tell me a little bit about the process of making Answer Machine?
Yeah, I didn't really set out to make it. During COVID, I set up my recording equipment and started documenting these songs that were coming to me. But at that point, they were kind of, were they going to be for Vaccines? Were they going to be for me? I didn't really know. And that was after a trip that I went to Mexico before COVID, and I think I had a very influential trip there. And I think COVID magnified that, because it was
Yeah.
this other world, Mexico, locked down Britain compared to like pre-lockdown Mexico City. But it was the music. I fell in love. I like your mug, Mr. Perfect. I fell in love with I need that. I fell in love with the Mexican music because I discovered a new source of music that was as good as. I put Juan Gabriel up with anyone, in terms of greatness, and I hadn't come across him yet. And I felt like I'd come across most great artists, or certainly the ones that the world had discovered. So it was really invigorating, and like is usually the case when things are meant to be, just a lot of doors started opening. So I met some people and they wanted to record with me, and a friend of mine in England wanted to finance it, and we ended up back in Mexico, finishing the record, playing concerts there, and it was just really exciting and solidified my ideas and emotions about music and what it was supposed to be about. And yeah, but then obviously I think I was a bit seduced by the whole thing at the same time,
Yeah, because it was new.
What's that?
Because it was kind of new as well to you and everything, and it was obviously like it's your project, isn't it? So it's kind of like, because Freddie and the Scenarios, it's obviously yours, so it's like all down to you what happens really. Whereas obviously different to the Vaccines being in a band with the 4 other members.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's given me a much greater appreciation of what being a band is about.
Yeah.
And how you're just one of the many important aspects, for one. But when I said I was seduced by it, I mean that in a somewhat like negative sense, in terms of, like, to me the record was perfect and the intentions were perfect, but then I was kind of seduced by, like, what if we go to Mexico and like play loads of gigs and do this, and is it going to be, and just perhaps placing inappropriate ambitions on it. Like, frankly, the record was made with intentions nothing to do with ambition, and it's not really in my business what happens with it afterwards, to an extent. Like, I do my best to make sure that it honors all the agreements that I made people, and I propagate it the most I can. But the music it's about my journey in life. That's my connection to the universe in the strongest sense. Like when I was 7, it's like music is what really opens me up. And I listen to a great piece of music, often sometimes I'll start crying, and I start seeing things very clearly in life. And music just opens me up. So the purpose of that record was to really learn to trust the universe and trust your intuition and trust the path, and kind of don't stress too much, just relax, trust. Of course, like work, you got to work hard, and but also at the same time, don't miss the gift, because the gift is all around us. The gift is in our families, and in everything we eat, and everywhere we go, and everything's like, when you talk to someone who's on their deathbed, I think that's the shit that matters. It's just and it's the stuff that we think is really mundane.
Yeah. But obviously, put it in them terms, then that is what's the most important thing.
It is, because where's my $1 million? Where's my headline you asked me? Where's my this? It's like, if you live like that, you're going to miss everything that actually matters, And of course, you get the Steve Jobs and every famous stories, and they all recount on their deathbeds being like, I've missed everything. And obviously they did great things, but fear, like the fear we don't have enough, we're not enough, we don't have what we need more. It just makes us ignore all the stuff that's priceless. So that album, the Answer Machine, was trying to point me in that direction, and it's been out since March, so I'm still learning what that record was trying to teach me. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but I'm still learning those lessons, and so that's the role I guess music has become in my life is like it's a teacher. The songs, I don't sit down like with a master plan. It's like the songs just come through, and I get to look back at the songs and the album and go, oh, okay, and that makes sense. This is what it's trying to show me. Because we need that. Humans, we need that, whether people get it from books or movies or religions or whatever. We need guidance, because we don't live very long. So, we're very intelligent creatures. We don't live very long. We have all this, standing on the shoulders of giants, etc. All this knowledge that we're able to tap into, and we need help to make the right choices. Because, I believe that heaven is a metaphor and hell is a metaphor, and you can see it. You can walk out your window, your door. Don't walk out your window, and you can see you see heaven some places, and you can see hell in other places, and you can see them very close to each other sometimes. And that's like because of people's decisions and people's misinformation and lack of information or lack of faith or fear, whatever. We can build like beautiful lives, or we can build hell. And I certainly need a lot of help to make decisions daily so that my life looks more like heaven than hell. Which I think personally, I would say I'm happy to say, like, I feel like I'm doing a good job because I love my life. I don't mean that in a prideful way. I just mean I have to acknowledge that, especially when I struggle, which I struggle all the time. I have to acknowledge it's like, look around you, Freddie. Things really couldn't be going that badly, considering what you're surrounded by. And so the next journey for me is the next journey for me is that progressing is trying to help me progress beyond a purely material sense, because my head is often stuck in the materials. That's how you judge how well you're doing. That's how you judge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so kind of it's all about learning for you, really.
Yeah, it's all about learning and growth, and exactly that's what life is about for me. It's about learning and growth and enjoying the ride and appreciating all the gifts, of which there are many.
And I want to also talk about something which is almost, you could say, another journey for you, playing live with Freddie and the Scenarios. You've done a few shows already, of course, but a few coming up towards the end of the year. And of course, yesterday, as we speak, a run of acoustic shows in October. So would you like to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so playing live with the Scenarios has been incredible. And it is a pretty improvisational and unstructured way of playing, you could say. It's not that unstructured, but we have a start point and we kind of see where it goes. And we set up in a semicircle so we can all see each other. I look at Pete, the drummer, more than I look at the audience, because live music to me had become quite theatre, almost like pantomime.
Yeah.
You hit your marks and you hit this and you've got clicks in your ears and you're hitting these certain points, and it's super effective and amazing, but for me, that's not where I get off on music. I saw a few people play that were really inspiring. It's like it's happening in real time. You don't really know where it's going to go, and you just hit these moments of like pure, that's it, So that's the Scenarios stuff with the band, and the band's incredible. Like Pete Robertson, the old Backseat drummer, amazing drummer. Ethan Johns, the producer, is playing percussion. Nick Peeney on bass. Sometimes Tim Lanham from Backseat on keyboards. Just like great musicians who can kind of go anywhere. And yeah, I played a few shows this summer on my own, or rather on my own, but also with this great singer, Ruby. She's called Ruby Derbyshire, who I'm producing soon. She's very cool. yeah, man, that was a scary challenge. Even to like 30 people, like playing on your own, it's like, wow, you got no band, no armor. But I'm a firm believer in kind of, you're not going to get what you want, you get what you need. So potentially what I would have wanted is like playing bigger shows with the full band and having this big like improvisational rock kind of Grateful Dead-esque thing. And I'm sure that will come, but right now it's going to be really simple. I'm just taking a guitar on my back. That's it. And I always, I always really admire people who could do that, because it seems so amazing to not have any armor. And people would ask me to play, it's, oh, you know, you're a musician, can you play a song for me now? I've got a guitar. I'm like, no, you know, give me like a band and a song I know and all this stuff, and I'll play. But so it's a great challenge for me, and I'm sure I'm going to learn everything that I need to learn from it as it goes on, you know. Yeah, it's my friend's band. They're called Rosie. It's going to be great, and they have yeah, they have an amazing lead guitar player called Holly Henderson, and I always get such a kick watching them. So it's going to be good.
Should be a good tour, and I'm sure links to tickets will be in your profile. But Freddie, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been fantastic chatting to you, and best of luck on the tour.
Bless you, man. Thank you very much.